Our first one is titled, Husband Says Groundwork is Laid for Our Son to Be a Sissy. I will preface this by saying that my husband and I are very much on the same page with parenting. We've talked extensively about it prior to having children, and more so now that we have our son. I know this is very long. Lately, our son, who's 6.5 months, has been kind of whiny. The other day, as I was sitting him in his high chair to feed him dinner, I said something along the lines of, "Man, kiddo, your whining is kind of going right through me today. I'm not sure what you want. Can you use your big boy words and just help your mama out?" Clearly, I know he can't talk. I know babies whine just to whine or because they can't communicate what they need. However, it's really bothering my husband more than me lately. Our son has belly issues, and he screams when he has to pass gas until the gas actually comes out. Then he's back to being super happy, or if it's nighttime, he'll go right back to sleep. He'll wake up in the middle of the night multiple times because he has to fart and it hurts his belly, so the only way to help him is to pick him up while he screams or cries until he finally passes gas. Either that or I will attempt a side-lie feed to help him relax enough until he farts. This has been happening since we came home from the hospital after he was born. I have tried everything to help him. Nothing has worked. It's a wait until they grow out of it scenario. My husband hurt his arm at the beginning of December and can't lift anything more than 1 pound, meaning he's been off work since December, home all day, every day with us, but I've been doing all of everything for our son. He'll play with him, sit with him, sometimes feed solids, but everything from nighttime feeds, consoling to day-to-day things are done by me because he can't lift or use his arm. I'm a stay-at-home mum and he would be working full-time if he didn't hurt himself. When I walk out of the room, our babe will sometimes start whining or crying because I left. Or sometimes he's just whining because, I don't know why, I guess, just because he's a baby. But my husband made the comment tonight that he feels like the groundwork has been laid for our son to be a sissy, mainly because I cater to him so much and because he feels our son doesn't take to him very well at times. We calmly talked about it and I said I have done every diaper change, clothing change, playtime, bedtime, book reading, bath time, nap time, and middle of the night consoling since December. But most importantly, I have fed this child from my own body from conception until now because we exclusively breastfeed. So someone, anyone, my husband, mother-in-law, cousin, or my own mother, making a negative comment that my child is a mama's boy or that he will have separation anxiety is a slap in the face to me. I'm doing my best to be the best mom to my baby boy. I will leave him alone in another room. I can still see him. He can't see me. So he can be away from me for a while so I can do dishes or clean the kitchen or put laundry away specifically so he can start to realize that mama walked away, but she will be back. It's okay. I will purposely eat standing up in the kitchen for meals out of his line of vision just so he's away from me and will play by himself. I don't know. It just really hurt my heart to hear my own husband say that. We've always wanted to raise strong, independent children, and I don't think I've laid the groundwork for him to be a sissy. He's 6 months old. Mama will always be there for him. I'm just sad tonight. Thanks for reading. Now, you know what's really funny about this is I do think that it makes it very clear to me why you need two parents and ideally why you need two biological parents who are of the opposite gender when it comes to raising kids, because men and women just respond to kids in slightly different ways and see different things. I do think that there is a definite part of this where the husband is kind of overreacting. I did the previous segment about this idea of raising a stoic child, and there was a story about a 3-year-old, I think it was a 3-year-old toddler who was not stoic at all, who was crying all the time and so on. And yeah, I can totally see that when you have a 3-year-old child and they have these ingrained habits that you want to get them out of, you can make a comment like this. You can kind of say, hey, the whining is really getting too much. We need to do something about that. And fair enough. At that age, I would also say that's a pretty foundational age in terms of teaching kids emotional regulation. A 6-month-old baby is not there yet. Is not there yet. I think that this part of the baby whining when you walk out of the room, like as often that happens for us, for example, with our son, it happens with both parents because he's spent a lot of time with both of us. And so sometimes if he wants to interact with someone or if he wants to play with someone or if he's trying to like engage with you and you walk away from him, he gets upset. And he only has so many ways to express that he's upset. And with babies, the only way they have to express that they're upset are with babbling or with whining or with crying. Like that's pretty much the variety of noises that a child is able to make. And so I think the husband here is completely overreacting. Yes, I totally understand the point that as a man, he does not want to see his son be like a whiny crybaby type of son. And I understand where that's coming from. As a mother, I also wouldn't want to see my son be like that. But you don't need to start freaking out about that quite so early. It does sound to me like he's a little bit frustrated at the fact that he's not as engaged with the child as he should be because of his injury. And under those circumstances, I kind of say, you know what, you just wait it out. Wait out a couple of months. You have so much time to fix any potential behavioral problems that you see in your son, to teach him how to regulate his emotions differently, to teach him how to express himself differently. You do not need to already start at 7 months saying, oh my God. And then here for the mother, if I were OP, I would probably say something along the lines of course, young babies, like infant children, will always be dependent on their mothers to a very different extent when it comes to how they interact with their dads. Like, you cannot compare these two things, especially if you're breastfeeding. Yes, the baby will associate you with food, with comfort. Yes, you do wake up at night with him much more often, so he has that association there. It's just biology. It's just part of life. And as they grow up, then that connection between mother and child starts kind of, I don't want to say it starts loosening a little bit, but it's definitely no longer biological to the same extent that it is at the beginning. And so it's kind of one of those areas where, yeah, okay, you can take it as a personal insult. And honestly, I hate the implication that I, as a mother, am holding my son back from being independent, from exploring things by himself and so on, because of my personal needs as a mother. Like, I'm trying to force him to be attached to me. I really hate the suggestion of that, because it implies that you're very selfish as the mother, that is, and you are more concerned for your own needs than you are concerned for your child's, and that's obviously not good. That's not how any of us want to parent. So I understand being annoyed, I understand being frustrated, and I think it's good that you were able to sit down, have a conversation about it, and that if your husband noticed that he was like, yeah, I'm not super comfortable with how this is developing, that you could sit down and go, okay, maybe he has a point, maybe he doesn't have a point, and you had an adult conversation about it. I think that's good. But I would say for OP, don't overthink it. I think a lot of people make these types of comments just because they think it's like cute. Sometimes people will mention it because they want to kind of encourage you as a mother. They're like, oh, look, he's such a mama's boy. And it's meant to show you that he likes you and that they notice that he really likes you. And so you don't need to take it as kind of a personal judgment of how you are doing as a parent. A 6-month-old baby will always be a lot more dependent on their mother than otherwise, and that's just completely normal. But I totally understand where the dad is coming from, and I think it's good that he noted it. Now, a couple of example responses here. Let me start by saying your husband is wrong. You aren't laying the groundwork for the baby to be a sissy. Now, my thoughts, they're just starting to get their personalities now, and I can tell you from my first one that very little I did had an effect on her. They're going to develop into who they are regardless of how attached to you they are now. My first was very attached to me and now is a daddy's girl. What I'm trying to say is don't stress out about the little things above, like eating out of his sight, etc. While it's good thinking, he will figure out all of that mama does come back without your direct effort. The fact you're even thinking through these things means your baby will be just fine. Follow your instincts, but don't overstress about the little things. My guess is the issue is that your husband feels slightly rejected by the baby, whether he's admitting it to you or himself. When babies have an obvious parent preference, it can be tough, especially when both are around equally. Luckily, the parent preference ebbs and flows, and I'm sure this phase will be long forgotten when your little guy is standing in the doorway jumping for dad when he gets home. This season is so short. I hope you can let his comment roll off you and feel confident that you're doing a great job. I really like this comment because she picked up on this idea of it's just the mother's really trying to make herself uncomfortable in some ways to try and teach the kid to be independent. And I honestly believe that so long as you don't allow having kids to interfere with your ability to do things in life in general, so things like doing laundry, if you want to do some kind of work, that you're able to work, for a reasonable amount of time, whatever it is, that's simple. If you want to go for a walk, if you want to take the dog outside, whatever it is you want to do, if you don't let having a child interfere with these things and you find ways to either take your child with you or to just have him coexist kind of next to you and let him play by himself and occupy himself, then you're not going to end up in this situation where kids are overly dependent on you. I really think that over-dependence, over-attachment only properly happens if you prevent them from doing their own things, from exploring the way that they want to, the way that they have a natural inclination to, because you want to keep them by yourself. That's the helicopter parenting style of parenting. And so, yeah, you don't need to be eating, standing in the kitchen really uncomfortably just so he doesn't see you and doesn't realize, starts learning that you're going to come back if he can't see you for a little bit. I think this is completely over the top. You don't need to go quite that far. The next one, the whining is totally on point for his development. I always worried with my first, he's a boy now, almost 5, that I was coddling him. But since he started school, one of the biggest compliments I get from all of his teachers and staff is that he's so empathetic and kind while being a boy's boy. He roughhouses and plays and keeps up with all the boys, but has the capability to be gentle with the girls. This might ruffle feathers nowadays, but my husband is a man's man. I'm talking hunting, fishing, sports, car mechanics, everything. But even he knows that our boy is only 4 years old, and I've heard him encourage our son to shed some tears if need be, but then pick himself up and keep going, whatever the situation may be. There's nothing wrong with him being a mama's boy. I have a dirt-eating, baseball-playing, ripped jeans from falling, climbing, fighting boy that knows his mama will always be behind. You're doing a great job. And like a previous poster said, maybe dad is feeling a little rejected, but tell him his time is coming, and that little boy is going to stick in him like gum. I guess stick to him like gum, because sticking in him is not quite the point. But I really appreciated here this idea of like a man's man, and the way that you describe a man's man is with these kind of traditionally masculine hobbies like hunting, fishing, being interested in sports and cars and mechanics. And yeah, I mean, I don't believe that that's especially controversial. I think that, yes, there is a fundamental difference here, a natural difference, if you will, between boys and girls and their interests, and between men and women and their interests, which isn't to say that there aren't girls who are interested in those things and there aren't boys who are interested in more feminine things, but it's fair enough to say that that boys develop, at their own pace and at their own age, and sometimes their interests develop in different directions as well. And this is kind of fundamental. It goes back to the original point of, this is why having a father involved in a child's life makes such a big difference, because they do get exposure to a much broader set of interests than they probably would otherwise if they only ever interacted with a female role model or a female parental figure. So yeah, in general, for all people out there, you do not need to start freaking out that your son is going to be a baby forever just because as a 6-month-old he interacts in the only ways that 6-month-old babies are able to interact. And masculinity in general, in terms of stoicism and interest in masculine things, are things that you can develop over time, and you just need a good role model and someone who helps you understand how to regulate your emotions when you're at an older age, and who introduces you and exposes you to other things to try out to achieve that.